Coming to you from Strings and Things Studio in Ventura, California, I'm Anne.
I'm Kaity.
And I'm Karin.
And this is the Strings Unraveled Book Club.
Welcome, everybody.
Howdy.
How's it going?
It's going pretty good. I am kind of excited that we are here to talk about this book, Mexican Gothic, Silvia Moreno-Garcia.
Yep.
But before we dive in, what are you guys working on tonight?
I am working on a Christmas gift for a friend. That's going to be this little dragon dice bag.
Oh, that's so cute.
So I was working on the dragon part until I ran out of red yarn and had to go buy another skein. And now I'm working on his little dice bag that goes with it. So
it's like a dragon's hoard. It's
so
cute.
So he can hoard lots of dice.
It's like a little cauldron to hold his dice.
Karin, is that the second half?
It's the second half. I know.
Yay, congratulations.
So I'm just calling it a sweater.
Okay. Of your sweater.
Yes, it's something I should, but I haven't touched it in 2 weeks because I told myself it's okay. I'm working on class projects, but honestly, I just was like, my brain was like, ugh. I came into a mental block, but now I'm like nothing like a deadline to put a fire under you.
Well, that's the very best thing.
So yeah, it's coming along.
Okay. So again, our book this month was.
What are you working on?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Anne.
Oh yeah. Me. I am working on my first Alpine Bloom tea by Caitlin Hunter. I am going to make a second one. I have the yarn lined up. But anyway, focusing on this one. I am in the body, and I'm probably about halfway done with the body. All the color work's done. I need to finish the body and make the lacy sleeves, which I am excited about.
Is it long sleeves or short sleeves?
It's short sleeves.
Oh, yeah.
And you do this cute little lace, and you attach it, grafting the lace onto the sleeve.
Oh, interesting.
Ooh.
That sounds fun.
Yep.
Somebody asked me why grafting was involved in that sweater, and I was like, oh. But now I know.
You'll find out.
I think I know why though. Is the lace directional?
Yeah, well, kind of. I actually think that it's not necessarily, but maybe it is. I think you'd get a scallop anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So the lace starts on the neck, but you just get the scallop at the base of the lace instead of the base of like the little feather collar.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it does make it more.
Was it
More
top
cohesive.
down?
Yeah, it is it is a top down sweater, and yes, I think it makes
So
sense.
to me, top down means that if you're continuing with the top down method, then on the sleeves, then they'd be going the same direction. So it's intentionally a different direction. Maybe.
No, so the sleeve.
Like the edge is the cast on.
Yeah, so the bound off edge of the sleeve will mimic the same scallop as the cast on. So you're going to get a scallop.
So you'll
no
have
matter.
a cast on at the sleeves instead of. I guess
Instead of the bind off.
Yeah,
That makes
so
sense.
the scallop will be going the same way because you're going to get a scallop either direction of this
But
lace.
the edging itself.
Yeah, so they'll match the neckline better.
Nice.
So it's going smoothly. I'm in the wonderful part where, like, all the fun happened already.
Yeah.
And now I'm just in the stockinette, but that's great because then you can watch more intense things. You can read while you're knitting. It's actually not a bad thing. I could go watch Oppenheimer again.
Yeah, it's good to have a boring project sometimes.
So back to the book.
Yes.
Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. I have kind of a lengthy summary, but hopefully it's not too long. Noemi Taboada is a 22-year-old wealthy socialite. She goes to see her cousin Catalina, who is living with her husband's family in the High Place, a mansion located near a small village in the mountains. Catalina has written asking for help. She sees ghosts and believes that her husband Virgil is poisoning her. Virgil Doyle comes from a once wealthy family that has run out of money. Noemi worries that the Doyles are after Catalina's bank account. At the High Place, Catalina has a fever and is ranting about ghosts in the walls. She is being treated by the family doctor, Dr. Arthur Cummins. Noemi is given limited access to Catalina. Catalina asks Noemi to secretly pick up medicine, a tincture, from the town healer, Marta Duval. But the tincture causes a seizure, and Noemi's visits with Catalina are limited further. Noemi eventually learns that the high place was built by the Doyle's brother Leland and Howard, Virgil's father. They also reopened the town's old silver mines. Howard's first wife was Agnes, who died. Howard remarried Agnes's sister Alice, and they had 2 children, Ruth and Virgil. Meanwhile, Leland married Dorothy, and they had Michael and Florence. Ruth fell in love with a man who mysteriously disappeared. Instead, Ruth was ordered to marry Michael, her cousin.
Yep, first cousin.
Yep. Before the wedding, she drugs and shoots up the household. Leland, Dorothy, Michael, and Alice are killed. Then Ruth killed herself. The mines were closed around that time. Florence later married and had Francis. But her husband Richard went raving mad and was found in a ravine. Now only the only Doyles left are Howard, Florence, Francis, and Virgil. As Noemi stays in the house, she starts to dream of ghosts, have strange visions involving the Doyles, and she sees a golden woman climbing out of the walls. Noemi forges a friendship with Francis, but he warns her not to trust the rest of them. Virgil is charming but seems predatory. Florence is strict and scolds Noemi constantly. And Howard is old, controlling, and a eugenics enthusiast. There are also rumors that the family is cursed. In addition to the family's sordid history, there is a sickness that has at times caused fever, madness, and death in many of the family's workers and staff. As Noemi's dreams get worse and she starts sleepwalking, she decides to leave High Place for now. At that point, the Doyles reveal they have no intention of letting her go. They tell the truth that Howard discovered a long time ago a mushroom that had the ability to heal and extend life. It is especially potent within the Doyles' bloodline, which is why they have an incestuous family history. This house and the air in it is infused with the mushroom spores, which is grown around and under it, forming a symbiotic relationship with the house and its inhabitants. It also allows a level of control over people that have inhaled its spores. The spores have an ability to collect and store memories. Noemi's visions are actually the family's collective memories, which they call the gloom. Howard sacrificed his first wife, Agnes, through a ritual that turned her into the mind and hub for the spores to spring forth from. Howard is actually around 300 years old. He has the power to transmute his memories into the gloom and then live in another's body. He's been doing this with family members to preserve the potency of his powers. The Doyles have lately been branching out in terms of marriage, Catalina, Richard, etc., because their inbreeding is causing infertility. Shocking. Outsiders,
for good reason.
Outsiders react differently to the spores, with some getting fevers and dying, the sickness that killed their workers. But Noemi seems highly complimentary. Plus, she has the wealth they need to replenish their fortunes. They want Noemi to marry Francis. Francis knows this is wrong, and he tells Noemi that Marta's tincture can lessen the spore's control over people. Francis and Noemi devise a plan for her to go along with the plan temporarily, as he sneaks Noemi and Catalina the tincture. After the wedding ceremony, they want to transmute Howard into Francis. Ugh. However, so Catalina stabs Howard in the eye with a scalpel, and Francis takes Florence's gun and shoots her. They escape. That's Francis killed his mom. They escape the family crypt, and Noemi sees that the body of Agnes is down there with the spores sprouting from her body and her mind still acting as the hub. Virgil stops them. Virgil says he knew about them continuing to take the tincture, but he allowed it because he wanted them to injure Howard. That way, Virgil can take control of the spores. Instead, Francis fights with him. Noemi lights the body of Agnes on fire. Catalina, Noemi, and Francis escape into town with the house ablaze behind them. The book ends with the police and Noemi's father headed over to the town to check things out. Francis has a dream about the house healing itself and him inside it, with it emerging stronger than ever. He wonders if he should kill himself. However, Francis and Noemi kiss, and they are hopeful they can build a better future.
This family's so effed up. Oh my god.
Okay, best question. What'd you guys think of the book?
I guess I'll go first. I was disappointed by this book because I thought it was such a cool story and I thought it had so much potential, but I do not think that either the author or the narrator of the audiobook were talented enough to pull it off.
Wow.
Because I found the writing to be a little dry and I needed a little more, like I have some examples that I'll talk about, but also the narrator of the audiobook was like, I don't know. It was like the way that she read it was like blah, 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 blah. Every sentence had the exact same intonation. And it really was like, it really took me. And I don't know if I was just coming off of listening to hundreds of hours of really good audio, but I was like, this is just like, it was hard to like get pulled in.
Fair.
And I wanted to be, but like, I don't know. I didn't feel like it lived up to the potential that it had. Fair. And I think it would make a really cool movie.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be, supposedly,
yeah.
I didn't have enough time to Google and research this, but I read someone's review that said that it's going to be a limited series on Hulu.
Yeah, see, that sounds fun.
I think it has a lot of good potential.
Yeah.
Karin, what did you think?
I think what it lacks in a paper version will be filled in a visual. I feel like this needs to be more visual. I liked the storytelling. I do feel like there were sections, and I agree with Kaity, maybe it was just the particular narrator.
That's fair.
That, because I thought, you know, there are times where I was like, wow, no way. You know, and other times I'm like,
I had to listen to it really fast because my library book was due.
So it was already exciting for you.
Yeah.
Because
so like I
had
didn't
the
get
spice.
any of
I also listened to it pretty fast.
Okay.
No,
but I
had
didn't
one
think
speed.
I didn't think that it was slow. Like the story wasn't boring.
No, not
but
at all.
I found an example of what I was thinking of. I have a passage here, and I want to read it like the narrator reads it. So, they were forced to remain on their knees as they set their bundles of cloth on fire. The cave filled with smoke. There was a boat. He pulled the woman into the boat. She obeyed. As he rowed off, she stared at him, and he glanced away. He thought she was unattractive. It's like, okay, like you're getting to the point, but I don't know. It was just dry, and it could have been really good. And I thought the story was exciting and disgusting.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So like,
and scary.
Yeah.
But it could have been so
house,
much more scary.
and nobody cleans the mold. I was like, what is, I didn't understand.
so that was
I understand now.
foreshadowing for you.
That was like, oh my God, this is creepy. How can you have this ginormous rich house on the hill, except they're not really rich. And then Grandpa, you think getting, because, you know, death is not the end for these people. like
for him.
for one of them.
Well, I suppose your consciousness gets to haunt the gloom.
It gets back.
Sure.
It gets sucked into the
But
gloom.
he's the only one who gets to live on.
But I thought there was someone else. Well, no, the presence of the
Well, Agnes
niece or
is
daughter.
the hub. So Agnes is the hub. She's the first wife. And then there's Ruth, who is a ghost. Like her consciousness is a ghost.
But her consciousness does seem to try to warn or interact with our heroine. And so she's dead, but she's not really dead. She can interact. You know, but wow. And then I thought I have no hope for the young guy, because I think he's just been too climatized by his family.
I don't know because because like if you just look at it as an organism trying to survive, which he's supposedly a part of the organism, right?
Yeah.
He like you wouldn't destroy. Like he had the power the ability, because like his mom knew that what they were doing was wrong.
Yeah.
And she even tried to get away from it.
Mm-hmm.
But like she is drawn back to it. She can't save her son. And he has the power to be able to kill his own mother and to help fight
But can
off.
he actually get away and survive?
Oh, he doesn't know.
Or
Yeah.
will have the spores been in him so long that the withdrawals will kill him?
Oh, I don't know that either.
We don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, could be a follow-up book.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm ready to start asking. Oh, I love this book.
Okay, I was gonna say, what about you?
I loved it, but like all of these things are very valid. Like there were moments where like we jumped through something, and I'm like, that's done already,
Yeah.
or like.
Or
Like, why are we spending so much time in a certain place? Or
what was that thing, and why didn't anything happen? Like, one part that I was thinking about was like their like wedding ceremony. They had to eat the mushrooms.
Yeah.
But then nothing happened.
yeah,
Like, was it just that they were like, because I thought like, oh, it's gonna be that now I don't know. Like,
I thought maybe it was going to take time for it to kick in.
I don't know. And I love the idea of like, I love a good like Gothic Victorian kind of thing. Like, it made me want to reread Rebecca.
right. Okay. So that's actually before I start the story. Before I start the questions, what are the things it made you think of? So Rebecca, for sure.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Karin.
So many classic Gothic, The Woman in White, Jane Eyre. I mean,
Jane Eyre or Wuthering Heights?
It just
like I couldn't decide.
Or Wuthering Heights, I think, is better.
Like the vibe was more Wuthering Heights to me, but the haunted, like what is the history of these people story, definitely Jane Eyre. Because I saw like a lot of people say Jane Eyre.
Yeah, and what was the other? We have always lived in the castle.
Yeah,
that one too.
So the things it vibed for me are Rebecca #1.
Mm-hmm.
The Last of Us.
Yeah, well, yeah.
The Yellow Wallpaper. Have you guys ever read that? It's a
No.
short story.
I love it.
About a woman going mad looking at this yellow wallpaper. And
it's the mold in the wall. Yeah.
They don't
say it,
tell
but
you,
there's
but
still
it's
the
definitely-
idea.
yeah.
It's still. I think she has elements of these other things.
Right. It's the haunt. Like it's, I don't think it was accidental that the wallpaper and the ugliness of the yellow wallpaper. So in the yellow wallpaper, because I read it recently, that she's seeing this woman trapped in the wallpaper. And it's a method for the storyteller to talk about her psychoses. Mm-hmm. And you don't know like what's real in this story versus what's her psychoses, which you feel a lot in this novel. And because it reminded me of Rebecca, it was a pleasure to think of Virgil as Armie Hammer.
Oh, yes. I know. And I felt torn because I'm like, ooh, spooky handsome guy, but also like, at some point it was like, no.
I know.
No.
Yeah. But it's a perfect characterization
Yes.
of Virgil's evilness. Which, if you haven't watched The House of Hammer, I recommend you watch The House of Hammer.
But how can this guy who says he loves her, but honestly, he just wants to use her as a tool to get rid of his father so he can take his place and be the one who lives forever with love interest after love interest.
Yeah, just eternally
Generational
renewed.
Oh, so
Gross.
Yeah.
so gross.
Very yucky.
So she did a great job of creeping.
Yeah. Like, so there's some, shining stars in this.
Yeah.
Like, did you see anything out there that was like a bad combination of this reminds me of?
What do you mean?
Well, there's one that kept popping up. I read an interview with the author for an NPR show. It's not going to come to me right now. But anyway, and one of the reviews that kept popping up like as a blurb on that was Jane Eyre meets Dracula. Which, like, Dracula there is an epistle. There's a letter to call the betrothed there. Yeah. And the house is spooky and holding secrets. But, like, of all the combos, I'm like...
Yeah. It pulls from a lot of tropes.
Yeah. Like, I mean, so many Gothic...
Yeah.
So much Gothic homage.
Yeah. It's a spooky old mansion and a creepy family that lives there. It's like... Yeah.
There's plenty of examples out there.
I wonder if she did some of them shallowly and some of them well, and maybe that's where the discordance of what's good and what's not good in this. Yeah, because it's all full of tropes, and she talks about it in the interviews I came across too.
I thought it was a really cool story. Like, I think it was. Yeah, I think it has a lot of potential as like a concept.
Yes,
it had. I like the elements of bringing it. Usually, when we think about Gothic stuff, we're thinking about England, British. maybe American Northeastern America, maybe, or, the Scotland, but hearing it in a different culture and being able to get little bits of that culture and that history,
Right.
I thought was an interesting, fresh take.
That's what I've liked about, so this is my second novel with her, is that I like her perspective on showing us Mexico's culture. Like, I read one person's review of this, and she's like, I live in a border town in the U.S., and I have a lot of Mexican family, and life in Mexico is nothing like this. Well, life in Mexico City is nothing like
a border
life
city
in the northern border.
Yeah.
So,
that's very different.
I think Mexico City is one of the most cosmopolitan cities in the world.
It's like one of the biggest cities in the world.
Well,
and
the country of Mexico is so vastly
huge.
diverse.
Yeah.
They have so many people groups that are indigenous and non-indigenous. So it's not like you can be in one part and that it's like
representative of all.
It's like the blind people that are the three blind men who are at different parts of an elephant, and to them trying to describe it is very different.
Yeah.
From their perspective, if you only have your region, then you don't get the full.
Right. Like, if you only ever went to Ensenada, you'd be like, Mexico's just like Ventura.
One of the things that I was thinking when I was reading this is, like, why is it set in Mexico? Because
I have an answer.
Okay,
I'm so glad you asked
but
that.
I'm thinking, like, it didn't, not that it didn't need to be, because I did appreciate the cultural aspects of it that we got from it. But after she gets to the house, they're all British. They're from England. Yeah. It could be set anywhere.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that it's Mexico. It doesn't matter anything, except I'm like, well, why did she choose that? And I was thinking, well, maybe it's because her and Francis can speak Spanish. Like, they needed to have a different language that they can speak. So it's like, well, maybe so that they can speak Spanish and justify that that's a language that she speaks. But that was one of the problems that I did have with it, is that, like, I wanted more of that like, I hardly ever say I wish a book was longer, but this book could have been longer. I could have used a little bit more, like, character development and also more of the culture, like the surrounding culture that we didn't really get a whole lot
They
of.
did pretty much stay on the hill.
Yeah.
You know.
She goes to town once or twice.
Which I love. It was Dr. Camarillo.
Yep.
Camarillo.
Yep.
So, in the author's words, her intent of making this, like, transplanted British high place is to show how there were many ways that colonialism took over Mexico. It wasn't just the Spaniards came and left. It's the other opportunistic European countries that came and like overwhelmed the natural culture of the indigenous culture. Like, I was reading, one of the things she mentions is, like, how the Spaniards had systems of slavery, they just didn't call it slavery.
Right.
And I kept trying to, like, I'm like, how is this different than slavery? I followed many, like, Google paths down there, and it's like, finally just, it's slavery without being slavery.
Yeah.
And that was, there's a letter in the back of the book.
Yeah, I understand the point of, like,
why.
And also then you get into, like, the whole eugenics part of it, which is, like, they need, like, fresh blood, and it's like, these people who live in this area are very, like, what's the word? They have a lot of vitality.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, oh, we should put a little bit of them into our bloodline, right?
Which she featured, like, she talks about how that comes from her study of Lovecraft, who is the biggest monster in science fiction that I've come across. Yeah. And that he was so focused on eugenics, and that even though they're like, oh yeah, we need to get some of this native blood in here, that is so deeply racist.
It's
in
colonizing people's traits.
Yeah, or her genetics. Yeah, they're colonizing her genetics.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I don't get to know you as a person, but...
Yeah. Well, they colonized the spore.
Yeah.
Because it was something, like, positive and not... I can't think of the right word. Nothing that was, like, dark and bad. It was something that was, like, worshipped and enriched them. And then...
But they had no problems killing all those miners for their own benefit.
No, I'm talking about the original peoples who worshipped the mushroom.
Gotcha.
And like they didn't eat the baby. the aged priests would give themselves to the community.
Yeah.
Which gross, but anyway. I was raised in a religion where you're supposedly eating somebody's blood and flesh every time.
And it's like, this is normal
yeah,
for me.
it's fine. Well, it's like it's very communal.
Communal.
As in communion.
Yes.
No transfiguration needed. It's just blood and flesh to start with. All right. What do you think Noemi's life would have been like if she had never visited High Place?
I think that she is a woman that gets what she wants. So I think that she would have, I mean, she did say she wanted to go to university, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think she would have been able to had she not done this, because she had to make some kind of deal.
Undergrad and
Yeah.
moved on.
Yeah. Married some fancy man and, you know.
Made his life
Yeah.
living hell.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a jockey. You should be the horse.
Oh, just kidding. I want to wear this
Oh,
beautiful
no.
ball gown instead,
Yeah.
but you're still dressed as a horse.
I think even if her dad found a way to pay her way into university, she'd be there maybe a semester until something else interested
Right.
her and moved on.
I think she would have
was
gotten
used
in
to
on
being
her
a rich
merit.
socialite.
She would get into the university on her merit because
Yeah.
she's whip smart.
Yeah.
But she like he throws money at it.
Yeah.
and
Just as insurance.
I totally agree with you that she would have it would have been another passing fancy.
Another thing she tried.
But I think after watching her journey through this book, I think she will be an anthropologist.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think she and Francis are meant to last.
No, it's nice that he has a friend to help him through this, but she's not going to stick with him.
They're-
I have no,
There's no love between them. They're friends bonded by trauma.
well,
to me.
he loves
Like
her,
the end of Speed.
but it's like, does
He's not in Speed too.
yeah, exactly. Does he actually love
that
her,
was
or is
bothered
it just like a new, different person?
Yeah.
You know, that's available.
Oh,
not
you're
married
not
to
my
his cousin,
cousin.
or is his cousin. And it's like, oh, you're somebody else. I've never met anybody else. Okay, I love you.
Well, yeah. What kind of experience does he have? He knows nobody else except that, like, the servants who don't talk.
Yeah.
Or his mother.
And that's what he
You know-
says too. He's like, what the hell am I going to do in town? And she's like, anything you want. It's like, well, yeah, that's because that's what you're used to doing. But like, honestly, what is Francis going to do with his life?
He
doesn't
doesn't
even
have
know- he's not-
anything.
The idea of whatever you want when you never even know, you don't even know what you want because that was never an option.
Maybe
Yeah.
he can be
So-
her driver.
I hate to think like maybe he should kill himself.
Oh,
But I mean, it would take care of the problem that
It
he's
would.
worried about.
it would.
And also, she's not going to stay with him.
No.
Nope.
Flights of fancies,
Yeah.
Noemi. All right, this is a quote. She wanted to be like. Perhaps this explained the parties, the crystalline laughter, the well-coiffed hair, the rehearsed smile. She thought that men such as her father could be stern and men could be cold like Virgil, but women needed to be liked or they'd be in trouble. A woman who is not liked is a bitch, and a bitch can hardly do anything. All avenues are closed to her. How do you think the sexism of this period affected Noemi and Catalina? How did it restrict them and force them to make certain decisions? P.S. Did you guys pinpoint when this is set?
It was like the 50s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I felt like the 40s.
I think at some point he said something, it was near the beginning of the book, and that was like 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what made me think. I'm like, okay, now we're in the 1950s. I don't
So maybe
remember,
it was
but
like the World War II reference. Or
I can't
something?
remember what it was, but yeah, it was
took
like
me a-
somewhere in there.
It did take me a while to try to figure out when this was because at first I thought,
Can I see the
well, remember we had I kept thinking it was during the, 1800s or something, and then they kept talking about the modern plumbing, and it shouldn't have distracted me, but it kind of bugged me. I'm like,
Well,
wait a
you
minute,
were
when is
distracted
this?
in somewhere else about that, but we're not going to talk about that today. So I
Oh,
feel
that
you.
was not it wasn't this one. It was in another story. It's another story we're talking about.
Well, I thought maybe here too, but
Possibly that's
because
right.
there were a
I
few
wasn't
elements
really,
that confused
there's a-
me until
there were a few elements
it.
here. I did expect them to have chamber pots because
just the old feeling of everything, maybe.
yeah, because I mean,
No
does he
amenities.
pick her up in a car or
Yeah.
is it okay?
But
It's
that
just
could
like
be
an
any
old-
time
I mean,
since
it could have been a Model
I
T
don't
that
know,
he had a hand
1895.
They do talk about like the cars that they have, and it's like one of them is like this old, like vintage, very luxurious car, and then there's like a modern car that they have, and it's like, okay, well they didn't have cars. I think at one point they talk about like silent movies or something.
Yeah.
And like her dad went to the movies or something, and that was like 2 or 3 decades ago. So I was like, okay, we're probably somewhere around the 50s, I'm guessing.
I felt 40s. I was doing my math badly.
I mean, you might be right.
Because I was guessing from the like there's phones everywhere in Mexico City, but not in the more rural areas.
Oh, that makes sense.
But I wouldn't know.
Yeah. Oh.
I guess because I also thought about the medicine woman and the herbalist, and her way of living was so
Timeless.
yeah, it's
Or
like old
simple.
country, simple cottage with all these wonderful smelling herbs. And
I wonder if that was intentional to put us like a little outside of time, like to
Maybe.
make it a little challenging.
and
to
then the
pinpoint.
story, when you're isolated up there, she does, as long as you're all the people up there sort of are in a space where time kind of stops. There's without connection to that outside world.
Yeah.
You are sort of floating in this timeless space.
Yeah, like a little bubble.
Yeah. To get back to the question about
Sexism's effect.
yeah,
on
I
this period.
I think that she is right about that. If she does want to get anywhere in life, she has to be manipulative like that, right?
Yeah.
Like there's not a lot of avenues open to a woman to get anywhere.
Yep.
So I don't think it's wrong to use what you have to get. If you don't have any other options, right? Like
Yeah.
there's no other way she could get herself to university or to get a career without knowing her place and working within the systems. And people still have to do that nowadays.
Yep.
Not as much, but like
Well, I mean,
you got to work with it
She
to
has
get
to
through.
use the tools that are available to her.
This is a modern characterization. A woman who is not liked as a bitch, and a bitch can hardly do anything.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and men often sculpt that narrative even now.
Yeah.
So like, you know, the perception of powerful women is sculpted by the men who criticize them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, in order to get anywhere of success, you have to, not that you have to be a bitch, but you're going to be, men are going to assume that you are.
Right.
And
Anytime
spread,
you make them uncomfortable,
Yeah.
you are the monster.
yeah.
Whether or not your cause of their discomfort is righteous,
Yep.
you're a monster.
Yeah.
So the restrictions come from where she can go. And of course, she's going to choose paths that, you know, her decisions are going to be guided by who she can see her in a favorable light.
Mm-hmm.
Which sort of is her trap door in this situation.
Uh-huh.
Oh, we didn't choose the shiniest one.
Yeah.
This one's closer to the money. This one has better traits. This one might be smarter. She's more even keeled.
Yeah. That's another part of the book that bothers me is like Catalina and her character. Is it like she's kind of in just like a handful of scenes and she's mostly a plot device.
Yes.
But it's
She's
like,
our
well,
MacGuffin.
yeah, it's sad to be Catalina.
I
Or-
would have liked to know more about Catalina because
Yeah.
she does seem like she could have been a very dimensional character.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She lays in a bed the whole book until the end.
Until she slurps down the tonic.
Yeah.
That's her main action scene.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, she does stab Uncle
use
Howard or whatever in the eye with the scalpel.
It was her. I thought it was
No, it was
No,
her.
it was her. She's like
guess
at the
at
side of the bed
high
and she
speed.
like breaks out of her trance and just starts stabbing him. And that's
It's
when
one of
what's
those
her name
things
gets.
where people have gotten so used to ignoring her and not realizing she's there that she sort of slowly gravitates closer and closer till she gets a chance to there's just enough of her grabbing her will to grab it. The medicine. She knew how much to take. Do you think she was trying to commit suicide by
No.
overdoing the medicine?
No, because it wasn't opium. It was just like a natural tincture that the woman made.
That she understood fought against the
Broke the-
fungi. Like,
yeah.
I think she probably took it once for sleepiness and was
Yeah.
like, oh, shoot, I don't feel as crazy when I take this. And so if she knew that it was going to do that, I don't think she was trying to kill herself. I think she was trying to break out.
Yeah, the relief was so like once I understood what the tincture did,
Right.
it put her behavior into focus for me that it was a relief.
Yeah.
But to me, I did take it that she was trying to relieve herself of that, but gulping the bottle down in taking so much of it. I thought she was
Maybe.
desperate for any kind of relief, even
Maybe.
if it ended her.
Yeah, maybe. Because she's sort of entrapped in syndrome in a sense.
But I don't think that I don't think that she would have gone that far, because she wouldn't have bothered to bring Noemi into this if she didn't think that there was a way that they could get out of it. I don't think that she drew her in and trapped her without caring that she was drawing her cousin into this. I think that she knew that her cousin was smart and could figure it out and could help her. And if that were her intention, I don't think that unless, she was sort of in and out of consciousness and reality for a little bit. So I don't know. But yeah, I don't think that she was hopeless.
Yeah, I don't think she would trap her intentionally. You're right. And she was conscious enough that I see your point, that she wouldn't have ended herself because she would have known that would have left her cousin there trapped.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
So,
what are your feelings about High Place? Did you feel like it became a character in the story? Eventually.
Yeah. The first half of the book is sort of waiting for things to happen, because you know something's going to happen.
Yeah.
And you're just sort of I was just sort of under the impression of a classic Gothic novel where it's this house is old and decaying and it's creepy and there's maybe a ghost in the walls, and it's okay, well, are you going to tell me that there is or isn't, So the house itself, or the estate itself, it obviously does become a character because it is alive, right?
yeah.
But it does take a little bit for that to come to fruition.
What is the scariest part of the story for you? I'm going to change this question to what is the most disgusting part of the movie for you? Because there's 2 highlights for me.
I could just rattle off a couple. I'm thinking of when she has a vision of somebody giving birth to a tumor.
Yeah.
And then also when they eat the baby.
Yeah.
And then also when he makes out with her and spills black bile down her throat. And then also when the doctor is piercing his boils with a lance and draining the pus. Oh, this book was nasty. It was so gross.
Everything about the oozing of bodily fluids when he's
so many bodily
near the
fluids.
end,
So many.
I was oh my God, I don't know if I can keep going. But when she's getting molested in the bathtub.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was gross.
Yeah.
And Grandpa and Victor are there.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And you know what? So it's one of my favorite Star Trek episodes where the guy is mind raping people. She was totally being mind raped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
It was not her imagination. They were going through the gloom and molesting her.
Yeah.
Wow.
I would say the scariest part, or the part that I was most oh my God, what's gonna happen, is when she's I'm gonna leave, and they're okay, come visit Grandpa one last time, and then he's just laying on the bed naked, and she's what's going on? And then they force her onto her knees in front of his bed, and you're what's going on?
Yep.
That was the point where the book really took off, and I'm what's going on here?
Come see Grandpa. Oh yeah, and he's not just naked. He's naked and
bloated
and
covered in pustules.
What do you think? So this
Here,
is where the book takes off.
Kiss Grandpa. You must kiss Grandpa. No.
If this was a portion that's segmented out by itself, it's a strong rising climax payoff.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
It was the worst scene and the best scene.
It was awful.
It was horrible.
I mean, we've been talking about this, but I just want to read this quote. Old would have been an inaccurate word to describe him. He was ancient, his face gouged with wrinkles, a few sparse hairs stubbornly attached to his skull. He was very pale, too, like an underground creature. A slug, perhaps. His veins contrasted with his pallor, thin, spidery lines of purple and blue. What a description. What do you think of Howard?
Yeah, Howard. Love him.
Oh. Yeah. I think that her physical characterization of him as we meet him now at the end of the use of this shell is a perfect way to illustrate his true villainy and disgusting.
Because if you met him looking like Virgil, you thought you were going to, you'd be like, that's a bad guy. But instead of being like,
isn't
that's
he pretty?
Yeah, but that's a disgusting, depraved monster.
Yeah.
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 Ugh.
Yeah.
I mean, Virgil is a disgusting, depraved monster,
yes.
but he doesn't look like it.
Just in an Army Hammer shell. What was your favorite character in this book? Who was your favorite character? Who was your least favorite character?
I didn't really like Noemi that much.
That's fair. She's actually kind of hard to like.
Yeah, I would say Francis was probably my favorite. Like, he's the most endearing. And I like Dr. Camarillo.
I like Dr. Camarillo. He was my vote for favorite.
Yeah.
I liked the medicine woman.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Marta Duval.
Well, she did a lot of exposition.
Yes.
So we got to pat her on the back.
Yeah, I did
for
like
that.
her. I didn't like everybody else.
No.
But none of them are very likable.
No, I think
But they were meant to not be liked.
Right.
I think the one that you get the most interaction with is Florence, who I definitely don't
No.
like. Like, she's terrible and
Yeah.
awful. And I think that we spend probably the most time seeing how terrible and awful she is, but she doesn't do the worst.
Right.
You know.
I mean, how do you
Who
beat
plays it?
Howard?
Yeah.
Who ate
Who
a
plays her
baby?
in a Who
Yeah.
plays Florence in a movie?
I don't know.
Oh, I think it'd be someone pretty and stern.
Yeah.
You know, it would be interesting, but she's probably too young. Because even though I love her,
It does say in the book that she's not old.
well, she's probably in her 40s.
Yeah.
So no, she is
I
not
feel
old.
like she's old, but not old because she's got the
No,
fungus.
no. That's
Emily Blunt.
yeah. She
Think
seems
of
too
her-
young.
But she's not.
No,
She's
I
in
know.
her
But it
40s.
might. She's. But she
could
seems
make
too
her a
youthful.
little-
Maybe.
But think of her
That
did you
age,
guys-
but make her look
a
worn
little harder.
harder
Well-
and worn down.
Did you guys ever
from-
see the Jane Austen book club? I think it's one of the first things I saw Emily Blunt in. I think it's
No.
it's either
Sounds
right
familiar.
after The Devil Wears Prada or it's right before. She has always looked the same age
Yeah.
to me, which is about 40.
I'm thinking that Florence is
Even though
probably.
she's gorgeous. I love her.
I'm thinking she's probably closer to 50 because it does say that what's his name, her son, is older than Noemi.
Okay, that's
yeah.
fair.
So in my mind, he was like 30,
Okay.
and so I mean, I don't know what.
Wait,
what
I
age
have
she.
I have a new one.
Okay,
Gillian Anderson.
okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking like not Octavia. Coleman.
Oh yeah.
Olivia.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she might be too old.
Yeah.
But was my.
maybe Olivia could play
One
there
of the,
somewhere.
a flashback of the wives.
Maybe.
No, I don't know.
No.
Maybe
'Cause
Emily could be
Because they have to be
Ruth.
British. Oh yeah.
There you
yeah.
go.
That's
Emily
fine.
is Ruth.
The female villain in Rebecca. The housekeeper in Rebecca.
Yeah. She
That's
wasn't
the ki-
old either. She
No,
was
but
just
that's
coarse.
the kind of character that kept coming to mind when I thought of this one.
Yes, in her action, but I think she probably has to be kind of the same as Virgil in the sense that, like, the devil comes to you beautiful.
Yeah.
Because she had to go out in the world and find somebody. Oh, this reminds me of another book, Haunted by Chuck Palahniuk, which there's this, like, group of people who live in this enclave and they send their beautiful children out and they try to make themselves gruesome by, like, I mean, you have to read it, but they're so beautiful and they like bring these people back in and marry them. And then like, I think the resolution is they become human sacrifices or something like that. It took me a year to read
It's
that
just
book.
very cultish. The whole idea of
Yes.
going out in the world and bringing people in to be sacrificed.
blood.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
is
literally.
very, very cultish.
Yeah. What do you think about the ending? Do you think the story is really finished? Dun, dun, dun.
I mean, they pretty much lead you to believe, like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Because she burns the house down, like in Rebecca. And
Francis has a vision.
but also Francis knows, like, well, some mycelium can't be killed with fire. So
Yeah.
there's a really good chance that, no, it's in the ground, it's in the walls, like, you're not going to kill it all by burning it. And she's like, well, we could go back and burn it some more. So, no, I don't think that it is.
Also, like, but could it possibly return to its original nature?
Yeah.
Because now Agnes is dead.
Yeah, without
So
this
the
creepy
gloom
family.
may be gone.
So maybe what we're saying is the mycelium was corrupted because of its connection to the family
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and Agnes.
They
And
perverted
without that corruption, it can go back to the way it originally was. Eventually, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that it is finished. I don't know if she plans on writing a sequel, but I don't think it needs one.
No.
Because I like a spooky story that leads
Just-
with like,
yeah.
everything's fine, but is it?
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
It's like
You do
classic.
not need to lead me by the nose through another one.
Yeah. It's like the end of the Thriller music video where he's like, oh, you're fine. It was you the whole time. And then he turns to the camera and he's a creepy guy.
Yeah.
So it's like, everything's fine, but is it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
The lengthy summary came from the bibliophile.com, and bibliophile is spelled with an F. And
As I've learned. I
Yeah.
couldn't find it with a PH.
And it looks like that's a really comprehensive website.
Yeah.
So might be a good resource in the future.
Cool.
And then the questions came from libromaniacs.com. And on that website, at the end of like the summary and questions, there were 3 books recommended.
Oh, cool.
First 2 are not going to be surprising.
Okay.
Number 1, Rebecca Daphne du Maurier.
It did make me want to reread it.
Yes.
And my aunt told me when I read it the first time, she's like, that's my favorite book. I reread it every year.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, I want to reread that book.
Yeah. It's perfect on like when we start getting crisp
It's such
weather.
a cozy book.
Yes.
I remember when we read it, I don't know, 2 years ago or whatever. And I remember sitting in my room, like facing the window, and it was raining. And I had a quilt
like a
on my lap,
super-
and I was just so cozy reading that creepy book.
I'm thinking of the weather. Like
Yes.
the weekend I started, it was like the perfect weather. to
Maybe
be
I'm just
reading this
craving the
book.
weather and
That
thinking
too.
if I read the book, maybe I'll just be disappointed.
Maybe it was nice this morning.
Yes.
I hope
Yeah, it
I
was.
hope the marine layer like stuck with you guys in Fillmore too. The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson.
Yeah.
I have not read this, but of course we have dabbled in Shirley Jackson. And then this one I'm having trouble finding, and I'm almost prepared to read it in Spanish.
Okay.
And really test my Spanish skills. No One Will See Me Cry, Cristina Rivera Garza. And this book, like the synopsis was basically like it's set in the 1920s Mexico, and this man meets another. I think they're both in a mental institution, and they meet up together, and he thinks that she's a sex worker from his past, and that they have a past already, and then they go through their harrowing lives together. And it's like a time period that I don't know anything about in Mexico.
Okay.
I guess.
Didn't we read some other books set in Mexico about bees?
Yeah.
What was that?
Yes.
That's a good. Well,
I'll look
it
it
was
up.
around that time. It was because it was during the Spanish influenza.
Yeah.
So that's I think it was 1918.
I'll see if I can figure out what that was. But
Magical realism. The bee. What was that called? The bees. Yeah, you're looking.
Was it just
yeah.
called The Bees?
No, it had like
The little
something
boy.
lovely.
yeah, I'll figure it out.
The Boy Who Spoke to Bees or something like that.
Something like that. So in one of the 1-star reviews on Goodreads, someone recommended like if you were looking for the vibe of this book and you feel like it didn't fulfill what you were looking for, that you should read a short story by Daphne du Maurier called The Birds. And since this had such heavy du Maurier vibes, I'm interested in looking for that short story.
It is The Birds.
The Birds.
Yeah. I've read it. It's fun.
Okay, I'm going to look for it. Goodreads had a 3.68 rating on this with mostly 4 and 3 star ratings. And that's at a 315.39 ratings. And then another 1-star. She tempered her 1-star with like, I didn't like it because of this, and then I also didn't like it because I have a book hangover from this book that was the best book I've ever read called Utopia Avenue by David Mitchell. So I'm on a waiting list for that. Because I'm always interested when somebody tells me it's the best book they've ever read.
The Murmur of Bees.
Yep.
I thought that was a very interesting book. The only bummer was when it was like, hey, that's a lot of classist racism in that. But that puts a damper on everything. So well, I'm glad we read this.
Yeah.
I want to read more
me
from
too.
her still. Gods of Jade and Shadow was maybe a better book, I will say.
This
and there's a sample of it if you have the book. There's a sample of it, and it was free on Audible when I.
Oh, cool.
So I don't know if it's something that's
cool.
an Audible original that you can grab for free.
This book got a glowing review from somebody who I highly trust with book things. I mentioned I was reading it, and she was like, "I loved that book," and I was like, "Okay." Well, I think I
did enjoy listening to it.
Yeah.
Overall,
I think I was damaged by the fact that I listened to it quickly and I didn't like the narrator. I think if I had read the physical book, I would have liked it a lot more.
Well, so now I'm doing something that I'm trying to strategize how I'm going to incorporate this realistically into my reading. So I've got these pretty little tabs on the first 20 pages of the book. I'm going to start doing annotative reading if I loved a book.
Okay.
So like I did like this book. So I'm annotating it, and like you go through with pretty flags and highlighters, and you write in your book, which feels
very weird.
Woo!
Also, the alternate cover in the inside is incredible.
Love it.
I didn't know that because I just listened to it.
I
That's
never
so good.
I would have a poster, and I
of that.
never.
Yeah, that's
because I
great.
listened to it. I didn't see that.
If you see this book on a shelf,
like super cool.
Yes.
But I like them both.
I also, when I was looking up reviews, there are paper dolls that go with it, which you're going to love, because it's like some of the outfits that they describe that she's wearing, which is fabulous. Like her clothes.
How cool.
It's like, I'll see if I can find the link. I'll send it to you.
A
Mexican Gothic
like a guide,
dolls.
but then
How
once I
awesome.
looked at the book, I didn't like a PDF, a book club PDF, but I think it's what's just in the back. I don't think that's
this is from like the Random House website, but I'll send you the link.
Thank you.
Because it's very cool.
I am into this.
Yeah.
I did like the stylization and like the descriptions of her clothing.
I'd like to have a paper doll house where you can change the wallpaper so it has more and more mold.
Yeah. Well, and so like in taking a close read of it, like I'm only getting more like deeply. That's the link. More deeply into it, and like seeing there's so much, like the first 20 pages, so much foreshadowing, and so much like dun dun dun.
Yeah, a lot of that.
Like we now know that because the father's kind of confused about why Virgil changed his tone when they're corresponding, of like, you know what, send Noemi, I want her to come. Well, now we know why.
Yeah,
because it's like, well, the first one's a dud.
Yeah.
Let's try again.
Yeah, definitely.
And they both have money, so there's that.
Yeah. So that's fun.
Cool.
So what have you read this month?
Let me go grab my pile.
I think last we talked, I was in the middle of A Court of Mist and Fury, so I finished that one. I finished Wings and Ruin. I finished Frost and Starlight. I finished Silver Flames. So I am done with the Court of Thorns and Roses series. I was done a couple weeks ago, but I finished all those, and now I'm in like book withdrawal to be. And I know she has so many more books.
I know,
but I don't want to start a new one of her series.
Well, join me in annotating.
Yeah, I do want to go back and read them.
So I bought the first two because I want to catch up to where Karin is physically reading for. I mean, I think that should be our bonus episodes.
Yes.
For the next 4. If you listen to our regular podcast, our Patreon from last month was basically a mini book club of A Court of Thorns and Roses. So I'm annotating, which is fun.
Yeah.
Dante saw me like sitting because he's a sophomore in high school, and he sees me with my highlighters and my pens and my Post-it flags, which is a joy to me because I love stationery products. And he's like, "Mom, you're out of school.
No, I'm not.
You don't have to do this. Who's making you do this? Blink twice if you need help.
Don't stop me from doing what I love."
Right. And I'm like, this is fun, Dante.
Yeah, school supply shopping was the best part about going back to school. As an adult, when school supplies come out, I'm like, ooh, what can I buy? I bought a Trapper Keeper this year.
Oh my God. I was just thinking about that. Like, because they have some sweet designs. Yeah. And they keep coming up in my Instagram feed.
I was at Target one day and they had them. I was like, oh, I'm buying one.
But you know, it's a little sad. Like, I used to have a dream. Like, I would have repeating dreams that, like, my mom gave in, and I would wake up and there'd be a Trapper Keeper on my bed, and that never came true.
No.
It's not Trapper Keeper 3000.
I don't know what a Trapper Keeper is.
A Trapper Keeper is a sweet binder from the 90s that had like a Velcro cover folder,
one
and
of
it was like
those?
Lisa Frank or these incredible like stylistic designs. Yeah,
And,
they're
like,
great.
oh
There's
my
a clipboard in the back.
Yeah.
It's got matching folders. Oh, I love it. I don't know how we got on this topic.
But Trapper Keeper 3000 is a South Park episode
Oh,
where,
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Cartman just keeps upgrading his
Yes.
Trapper Keeper. And then it, like, eventually,
Yeah.
things go awry. All right, what'd you read, Karen?
Well, I read The Lady Town Circle of Women by Lisa C. Loved it.
Cool.
I love it. I really thought it was really interesting. It had parts like the book we've just read. Parts of it were a little slow. Parts of it picked up about halfway, and then I was into it. It's different from a little different from some of her other books, but I enjoyed it. Of course, Court of Thorn of Roses, and
you finished
and I just finished A Court of Mist and
That's
Fury.
the best one.
I'm in the third one because like I finished it and I immediately went and gave it back and tried to get the next one. I do have the next one, so I'm about a quarter of the way through since like the day before yesterday.
I will say
yesterday.
the third one is a bit of a slog.
Yeah,
But I mean, they're all great.
Yeah.
But it does slow down.
Yep.
But just keep going.
Oh, I'm gonna keep going. It's yeah. So
we're like at least a year behind everybody that's listening to this. Is like we know, but
whatever.
Yeah, no,
we're having a great time.
We're here now.
Okay, so I am reading.
And you suckers all had to wait for each one to come out.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm currently reading The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store.
Yes,
It's really good. And there's this book that I read, and I love it, and I'm very angry about it.
Ooh.
Chelsea Abdullah, The Stardust Thief. It is so good, and I am so angry that I have to wait till 2024.
I hate that feeling.
Before the next one. There's going to be 3 in a series, and I was like, book 1 was so great, and everybody that you read about it goes, we're very angry that you didn't have the next one ready for us immediately.
You're gonna George R.R. Martin this and get yourself, hassled out of the sequel.
No.
But that's a high recommendation.
Yeah, it is
again.
really okay. The Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdullah. So good. Narrated with multiple voices.
Oh, I like that.
So it's very much like a radio play, but better and so good. Okay. So you know how Court of Mist and Fury, it's fantasy realm, but it's set in. Okay, so there's a new term that's not Middle East. It's like a 4-letter acronym that is more accurate. That has anyway. My eldest shared it with me, and I promptly forgot it. But it's that part of the world that was the foundation of where all of us came from.
Fertile Crescent.
That kind of
that's an anthropological term for it.
Yeah. But so good. I mean, there's a world of jinns and a world of humans, and a lot more than that. So anyway, Stardust Thief. Highly, highly, highly recommend.
Nice.
I might even listen to it again.
I think you might have heard me gasp when Karin was talking, because I was thinking about how when I listened to all of the Sarah J. Maas books, that there are dramatized version audiobooks for each of them as well. So
I did not know that.
I didn't listen to them because I wanted to get their original, but I'm like, well, now I'm going to go back and listen to those.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, anyway.
Who has a sexy enough voice to be really sad? That's what I think that is now like a very toxic thought experiment to ask people to cast. Because then you're just like obsessed thinking about it.
Yeah.
Until they finally announce the cast, which will probably not be what I want anyway.
As I'm listening to it and I hear Kaity going, "Oh, I'm dying," because I'm like, I know that I hear past me making little comments about what I think about people. in characters only because I just didn't know.
Not
You
yet.
didn't know.
I didn't
None of us
know.
knew.
I didn't know who really was the monster.
So,
and now I know.
You're Katie. You just said that you're in like book withdrawal. Is that how you
Yeah.
say it? Like, what do you guys do when you're feeling that? Like, I want this fix again, but I don't want to dilute what I just went through. You know?
It's hard. I don't
Yeah.
know. Because I do the same with like really good like series. And a thing that I usually do, which is not healthy, is I don't finish it. So I'll
No,
wait
I
till
do that
like
too.
I still have an episode left. It's not over yet.
Yes.
I didn't do that with these books because I just ran
It's
through
an
all
ongoing
of them.
series
Yes.
anyway.
But now I'm like, but when's the next one gonna come out? But I think it's like when like a new season of like Stranger Things come out and I rewatch all of it
Yes.
to get ready for it. So
Yes.
I'm sure when this new book, whenever Sarah J. Maas writes it, comes out, I will reread all of them, which is a lot of book.
Yes.
But yeah.
Yes, it is.
I think my answer has been just talking to other people because I've talked to you. My sister is reading it. My cousin Claire reread it. She read it whenever these were coming out. But us reading it currently, she's like, oh, I want to go back and read them too. So we have like a group chat with my sister and my cousin, and it's called Amy's Reading A Court of Thorns and Roses. Because it's like, I just want you to text me your reactions
Yeah,
when
to
things
each
happen
thing,
and just
yes.
tell me when
Yes.
you're reading things.
Just like you've been doing, Karen.
So
Yeah.
it's the same with Karen.
Perfect.
I'm like, I just want to talk to people. Like,
Perfect.
text me when something happens so I can
Well,
be
that's
like,
the
oh
thing.
yeah.
I felt like I needed to not just. I couldn't. I thought this,
Wait
if I
until-
wait
yeah.
till I'm done with the whole book, there's so
You won't.
much that
Yeah.
it's overwhelming. Gotta get it. These little thoughts. I'm in and.
I
we're
want to
just
come
getting
back
little
to the
conversations.
first one that you texted about because that was the main thing I wanted to ask everyone.
Is it the time period? I have no idea.
So I have
just
thoughts,
I
but
just
we're
gave
gonna
up
save
on
that. Yeah.
thinking about it.
We're gonna save that.
Okay.
Uh,
What did you read?
I'm sorry the library apps aren't working so good for you guys.
I just haven't tried because I've been like
It wasn't Hoopla's fault that my library card is so old that the
It's
physical
so
one is
ironic.
almost faded completely
Yeah.
off.
I have
so
no idea where
ironic
my
that
physical
it
one
just
is.
expired as you like brought yourself more access.
It lasts for 5 years,
Huh.
right? And this was the end of year
It's
5.
so crazy. So Karen's library card expired in the middle of the book she was listening to.
No.
Oh, you were
I
able to
finished the
finish.
court, but I couldn't get to book 3.
Ah.
It let me put in my card. Like, sorry, you got a problem. You have to call the library. Haha.
I have finished 10 books this month,
Woo,
which is
woo.
like, I think I
Holy
was
guacamole.
a 12-year-old the last
Yeah.
time I
That's incredible.
read that much. Okay. A Court of Silver Flames.
Mhm.
A Light by Sarah J. Maas. All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony
Love that
Doerr.
one.
That was audiobook. Killing Me by Michelle Gagnon, which is this girl who is formerly a con artist, has set her life straight, and she gets abducted by a serial killer, and then somebody gets in there and saves her and kills the serial killer.
Oh.
And then it goes on from there. Like, what is this tangled mess she lives in?
Whoa.
And I read that as an ebook. My husband and I, we agree on a book to listen to when we're on a long drive, which we recently had. And he went 180 degrees from the book we stumbled into last time, which was The Fourth Wing. But still good. Lafayette in the Somewhat United States by Sarah Bell. And it's about Marquis de Lafayette and his input in the Revolutionary War. And it's very interesting. Sarah Bell is a really interesting historical writer. You might know her from This American Life and from The Incredibles. She voices Violet. But it was dangerous for me to listen to this and drive. I definitely was long blinking.
Uh-oh.
I mentioned, well, we were talking earlier, The Yellow Wallpaper, which is a 30-page short story, but I'm counting it. That's by Charlotte Perkins Charlotte Perkins Gilman. I'm interested to read more of her writings. The Witcher, Book 1, Blood of Elves, because I'm looking for that new series.
How was it?
I don't know what Henry Cavill's like commitment to the source material is, because it wasn't bad, and I am interested in continuing, but it was a lot more of like, here are the people and this is what they did for 300 pages.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like, I mean, that's a valid storytelling, but there was, to me, not much of an arc.
Okay.
I mean, maybe because it is a series, it's just this
this portion is
300-page
steep.
A 300-page intro is a lot to slog through.
Well, and it's good, and you're picturing Henry Cavill as the Witcher, and that's fine. But not sure. It's not scratching
not
the itch.
filling in, yeah.
Audiobook on that. Passing for Human, a graphic memoir by Liana Fink. That was
I was
actual
looking at that
book.
one.
Very good.
Mm.
It like touches at the tenderness of like you think of your parents as these wonderful, fully formed like pillars of your life, and she's able to like get at the tender underbelly of like everyone's mental health, and it's really good. Okay, so when you did what is Unsolicited Advice for Murders by
Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murders.
So I was Googling that. It took me to a series by Rosalie Knecht about Vera Kelly. And those are, I finished all three of those. Who is Vera Kelly? Vera Kelly is not a mystery. Vera Kelly, lost and found. And Vera Kelly is a PI who gets her start in her first book as a CIA operative in the late 60s and she's like 26, 27 years old. She's a lesbian trying to make her way, discovering herself and protecting herself in a time and place that's not friendly to her identity. And then the next one is set in like later 60s. I think it goes 66, 68. And that she picks all these kind of interesting things that are happening in the world that you don't actually like hear about, to me, that you don't hear about that often. The first book is an Argentinian regime change. The second book is this boy who they're hiding from a regime change in the Dominican Republic. And then this last one is she has fallen in love and she has this wonderful girlfriend, and she's part of this like ultra rich family in California. And it has to do with like, I mean, it just has to do with the difficulties of trying to like live your identity in the 1970s.
Interesting.
All good. Everything was good, except The Witcher was maybe not.
That's a bummer.
Yeah.
Are you gonna keep going?
I'm gonna go into the second book and see.
Maybe it'll take off.
Yeah, maybe.
I was telling James that like I'm in my like fantasy era.
Yes.
So we were talking about like what are we gonna watch or what are we gonna like what should I read or whatever, and he was like, well, since you're like into fantasy, we could watch The Witcher, which I've watched episodes just like hanging around while he has watched it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll do that. We haven't started that yet because we're currently watching The Legend of Vox Machina.
Oh, I've never watched that, but it
so
gets
good.
recommended to me all the time.
So good.
All right.
Anyway, but I'm excited to watch it. I have not read any of it, but
I think that at least the first season maybe is more interesting storytelling.
okay.
But you have to really pay attention,
Mhm.
and then it pays off.
Okay.
And I enjoyed the second and third seasons. I haven't watched the last episode of the third season for the exact point of like,
I don't want it to be over.
well, I don't want his era to
Poor
be over.
Henry Cavill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that he was once a chubby teenager and that he is a like straight up video game addict.
Huge nerd.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, I see
yeah.
the nerd. I see the nerd part.
He like the way I've heard it characterized is that his video game addiction has almost cost him acting jobs.
Yeah, he's like a huge fanboy.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, what are we going to read next month?
The Sundial by Shirley Jackson.
All right.
Okay.
And so she wrote The Haunting at Hill House, right?
Mm-hmm.
This came before.
All right.
Let me read the little synopsis. Oh, darn it. Plot summary. Aunt Fanny has always been somewhat peculiar. No one is surprised that while the Halloran clan gathers at the crumbling old mansion for a funeral, she wanders off to the secret garden. But when she reports the vision she had there, the family is engulfed in fear, violence, and madness. For Aunt Fanny's long-dead father has given her the precise date of the final cataclysm.
Ooh, spooky.
Ooh, yeah. This was first published on January 1st of 1958.
Happy New Year.
It's the end of the world.
As you know it. Well, you know Shirley Jackson. She's such an uplifting one.
Yes. Okay.
I'm interested.
I was tempted to do a Stephen King because I've never read Stephen King.
Nada?
Never.
Nothing.
Not a single
I
one.
think I have, but I
Oh.
don't remember. It's been a very long time. I don't remember what.
The
I think
one-
I read Misery.
I think
I read Dolores Claiborne for sure. I have The
I
Stand.
kind of
but
want to
it's so
see.
big.
It's
I
a
kinda
giant
wanna
book.
I kind of want to read The Fog.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Only because I could never watch scary movies because even the commercials would give me nightmares. So the image of the fog, of the school bus going into the fog and every child coming out changed and weirded out. And that's all I know.
Watched that movie. So like I know it's one of his, but I've never watched it. Pet Sematary and The Shining are like I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
See, Shining's on my list. I've seen clips from here or there, but never the whole thing.
Wait, you never seen the movie?
Never seen The
Well,
Shining.
definitely read the book, like first,
Mm-hmm.
because the movie like has resemblance, but
should-
it's its own creature.
You should watch the made-for-TV version
Yes.
because that's much more
Close to
on
the
par with
book,
the novel.
yeah. But
than
Steven
the-
Weber I just watched him be criticizing his performance, and I'm like, you made me cry and broke my heart. Like,
So
I love The Shining.
But I think I'm going to start with The Fog,
All
just because I was always fascinated by that.
Yeah.
So
Cool. Okay, well, we will see you next month when we talk about the Sundial. If you want to hear us talk about A Court of Mist and Fury, you can subscribe to our Patreon because I think we'll probably talk about that next month. And in the meantime, we will see you next time. We've got new classes out on our website. We've got a new podcast out. And if you read this or have any recommendations for other books that we should read in the future, let us know. Email us or shoot us a message on our website or however you want to get in contact with us. We would love to hear from you. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
bye.
Strings Unraveled is a production of Strings and Things Studio with Anne Lekkervin-Kazoli, Kaity Von Rader-Fraker, and Karin Wilmoth. Recorded and edited by Kaity Von Rader-Fraker. Find us online at stringsandthingsstudio.com or on Facebook or Instagram at Strings and Things Studio. You can email us at stringsandthingsinfo@gmail.com.